Hello, and welcome to the Help I Started a Business, Now What? Otherwise known as the Now What Show, where we help new business owners, those that have started their business in the last 3 years. We help you demystify all those things you're supposed to be doing in business. Now, today, I'm welcoming Stephanie from Artisan Joy, a fellow publication in the artisan space as well. So, welcome to the show, Stephanie. And can you tell people a little bit about yourself and your background?
Sure. Hi, I'm Stephanie Blanchard. I'm the publisher and editor-in-chief of Artisan Joy magazine, and it's a startup publication. I started it in 2021, and it started as a website, and I interview creative entrepreneurs, also known as artpreneurs or art business owners. And the reason why I started Artisan Joy back then was because I was a freelance writer. I always wanted to work for a publication, but in the freelance world, I had just been writing for other businesses. And so I was really wanted to start something, but I could never come up with the subject because I felt like everything had been done. And then one day, this was in the middle of COVID, it occurred to me that, I like making things, but even more so, I like talking to people who make and sell things, whether at an art market or I'm just always fascinated by those people. So I decided to start to write about them. So over the last couple of years, I've fine-tuned, what Artisan Joy is all about. And Artisan Joy, our mission is really to promote the work of creative entrepreneurs. So we're a magazine and website that is a cheerleader for small business owners, small creative business owners.
Fantastic. So, we're here today to talk about that dreaded topic of PR and getting coverage for your business when you're new. So, let's dive in and talk a little bit about things that people should be thinking about before they start approaching people. So, you don't want to just cold approach people without having really thought through what your strategy is for the business. So, can you offer a few suggestions for our listeners about things that they should prepare before they even get started with doing PR?
Yes. So the very first thing that I would say um, is to think about your story and why you started your business, because writers are looking for a good story to tell, and people who own businesses will hear that just in marketing, typical marketing advice about what is your story. And so first think about that, and can you write it in a paragraph? Um, you could design earrings, but what's the story behind it? Why are you designing earrings? What inspires you? So that I think that is the very first thing I would say to a new business owner about getting press is have your story down. That's the first thing.
hmm And I like the have your story down succinctly. Like in a
Yes.
needs to you need to initially start with a small paragraph. If it's a novel, people won't read it when you're going to talk with them because it'll be overwhelming for the person that you're sending it to. So I love that idea of have your story together before you start pitching. Okay, once you've got your story together with the hook or what's a little unique or that influences that, what else should you think about before you start reaching out for PR?
So the other thing is because everyone or most people have smartphones, one of the things that just we're accustomed to are nice photos. So I'm not saying that you have to have professionally shot product photos, but definitely have a few photos that you can send to editors or have it on your website of like well done photos. Like they look professional. So they might not have to be professional. You could have taken them with your smartphone because there are all these editing apps that make it really easy to take nice photos, but definitely have that ready to go because just like you have your written story down, your why for your business, you need your visual story because essentially what PR is that you're selling yourself to and your work to an editor, and so you need to entice that and back it up with some nice photos.
Mhm. I would
So
absolutely second that from submissions. And you have to, especially if you're talking to either a publication or anything going into print, you have to have high resolution photos because what is required for print is different than digital. With digital, maybe not quite as much. You can get away with more with digital. But as you're approaching PR, think about that angle of, is it online only? Is it going to be in print? Like, how is that going to show up? And I would agree, high quality photos are absolutely necessary. So any other tips you've got? And so we've got the first two, have your story, have some good photos. Any other initial advice you would give people for getting started?
So how I think if I was a new, if I was selling art or some sort of artisanal good, the first place I would start for media is with my local media. But not everyone knows how to go about contacting their local media. So to make it easy, I would say start with local media, and the way you find someone's email address is usually you go to the media's website, and somewhere, a lot, the really good publications will have editors, they'll have the editors' email addresses, or at least a place where you could submit story ideas. So look for that. And be aware. So, say you're going to pitch an editor for your local lifestyle magazine, just kind of peruse a website or their magazine or the newspaper and just see what kinds of stories that they feature. So, just to make sure that you are not pitching the wrong editor, because you don't want to waste your time and you don't want to waste theirs, and you might wonder why they're not responding to you. Also, when you're reaching out to an editor or journalist, just know that they're getting lots of emails each day, and they might not respond right away, and that's okay. It's not because your stuff isn't good. It's just they're just getting bombarded with emails.
hmm Yes, I would agree with that as well. I have, for Handmade Seller, I've got a submission process where we have people fill out a whole interview form. And it's actually not unusual. Well, one, you can't follow up with every single person necessarily. And so don't be offended because people can get inundated with things. But for us, the story submission type process is something we look through when we're looking for new stories. And so you could submit it and it literally is months before someone comes back with it. And I've had that happen where someone I filled out an application and it was 3 or 4 months before I followed up with them because my publication cycle was only going to occur so often. And so even with websites and publications, whether they're digital or print, there's a lead time component to that, and it's probably much longer than people realize. So I think you're right with the, if you're getting all kinds of stuff or they're getting all kinds of stuff, it might take a little while or it might take months in some cases. So that's definitely a fair point.
And it is okay to follow up after, I'd say, after maybe a few weeks have gone by. I think it's okay to send a follow up email. Um, I think most people would be okay with that. Though another tip that I wanted to mention for people is to think about timing when you're pitching us your brand. There are all these calendars online that you can find about what's happening in a month. For instance, February is coming up, so reporters are working with leads. They have this lead time. So for instance, now if you're interested in pitching a reporter your product, say you make heart-shaped earrings. Well, Valentine's Day is coming up. So that might be, a good topic for your email, writing to an editor with a photo of your heart-shaped earrings. Other stories for February are, Black History Month, Super Bowl. Like if you're an artisan that makes some sort of food, party food, that's good for Super Bowl. You might want to pitch that. Um, Wedding and bridal, that's happening in February. And so just think about, what's going on. So I would try to think a month ahead. So what's going on in that season, and that might be an easier way to catch an editor's attention. Not so much for a publication like Artisan Joy, because I don't have themes, or I don't go by a month, what's happening in a month, but other publications do, especially local ones.
Hmm. Hmm. And I love that idea of approaching some of your local media. So let's talk a little bit more about that, because I think too, everybody's looking for that fresh new take or that other content, and especially in that supporting of local businesses. So can you speak to a few more examples kind of around some local media or things you've seen, since I think it was a great topic that you brought up, because once you start looking around, there is far more local media than you realize for most
Mm-hmm.
people. It's in the free circulars that are distributed. It's in all kinds of magazines. It's all over the place. So let's talk a little bit more about people starting with their local media. So any other insights or tips you might offer as it relates to that?
What Don't be intimidated by for reaching out to your local media. All the local media people that I have met, they're all very nice people, and they're in their jobs because they like what they do. Local media doesn't pay that well, right?
Yep.
So they're doing it because they love what they're doing, and they like meeting people and learning about businesses. And local media is all about, so from what I see, is all about supporting small businesses. So, they want to talk about small businesses, and that's why the your angle is so important. So that's what it's okay. And sometimes media outlet will sponsor some sort of event, or say they'll be at a crafts fair. You might not have a table there, but just know that local media might be there. So if you're out day to day, just talk to people about your business, because one, you never know who you're going to be speaking with, and it's just having that connecting with an editor, or connecting with somebody who knows an editor. So don't be scared by your local media. They're people just like you, and they love where they live just like you do, and they do want to support what you're doing.
Hmm. And one potential angle, so let's say, because this is for early businesses that we're speaking to here, let's say you've decided you're going to be at the farmers market every weekend, or however often your farmers market is. One potential angle, then, what's helpful for your local media is, as you're pitching and talking about that story, they're also incorporating, then, hey, mentioning go to the local farmers market. And so there's a couple of nice angles for local media in being able to tell the story and highlight things that are happening and where you find things locally. As much as we're in an online world, I think too often people don't utilize some of their local resources to the extent that they could, where those resources want to be there because they are actually there to support the local businesses and the local commerce. And so I love the thought that even though our publications are national and international, I love talking about also supporting and sharing the love with all of your local publications as well.
It's a good way to practice, and like sort of lose the fear of reaching out to a media outlet, because it can be scary, because it's almost like sales in a way. So that could be, for many people, it can just be scary. Also, speaking of farmers markets, so say you have a table at a farmers market, um, chatting with the people who organize the market because they're always connected to media because that's part of their job is to bring people to the market. So they might already be connected with an editor who will be interested in your story. So, make friends with the people who head up the market so that, they can expand your network and help get press that way. And you could be part of a larger story that a journalist is working on, that their source is a farmer's market or some other type of market.
Hmm. I also love something you touched on with it's a great way to practice and start to lose the fear of if that's really new for you and it feels really awkward and you're really just not sure what these processes look like and timing, working with a lot of your local media people can help you start to get a feel for it in how these processes work and well, what is their process? Because no two of us have the exact same process either. For those listening, we all have kind of slightly different processes, slightly different timing, slightly different requirements for them. And so, working with people locally as well, you start to get some examples and a sense of that. And it'll even lead you to ask better questions when you're working with other outlets about their process so you can understand it and it's not quite so scary. So, there's so many benefits to being able to do that. So, do you have
Absolutely.
any last words of wisdom you want to add before we have people follow up with where they can find Artisan Joy and how to be featured? Any other last items?
Yes. So this is for people who are, we're talking to people who are just starting their businesses. But what I will say, for someone is to sign up with, a website called Quoted. That's sorry, no, QWOTED, and Harrow, which is Help a Reporter Out. You can register on those sites. What those two sites do is, reporters can go onto them and say, "Hey, I'm looking for a story. I'm looking for sources." And it could be, I'm looking for, I'll just use this example again, Valentine's gift ideas. And they could put that query into Help a Reporter Out or Quoted. And then you can search through those queries and respond if you're of relevance to what they're looking for. So that's another place, that you can be a potential source where reporters are looking, less so for the local media and more so for national. But it's an idea and it's easy to do because you just sign up on the website.
Mhm. And I've actually used those for previous companies as well and been able to
Mm-hmm.
land coverage, been able to land writing articles and submitting for other businesses. I had a friend that ended up on a Netflix show with her company because it was through Help a Reporter Out. They had put an open call out. Of course, they didn't say it was Netflix. So you just don't know who, because it is national, you don't know who's putting that out there. And so that is a great idea there's all kinds of interesting things that come through those sites like Quoted and Help a Reporter Out, and they don't always identify themselves either. It can be kind of nondescript and a little bit cryptic too. So that's a great way to, but what do you have to lose? Okay, so you spend a little bit of time, you invest a little time in getting that pitch because has to be crafted to what that reporter asks for. But still, that's a great way to try and get some um, reduced cost for your. Usually, it's free coverage. I don't think anybody can charge anything if they're using those as sources. So I believe that those are. I think they have to be free. I'm not 100% sure of that. And
At
so,
least with Help a Reporter Out, that I'm not sure Quoted, but I mean, I've used both of them to find sources. So yeah, I think that's like legit straight PR where, they're journalists looking for sources, not pay to play type things.
mhm.
Oh, that's what something small business owners, new ones, should be aware of as, like true journalism. is shouldn't be that some you have to pay to get put into a story. So just be aware that there are some magazines out there that you do pay for to be included, but they're very clear with that. And some, but from a traditional standpoint, a periodical, newspaper, magazine, unless you're putting an ad in one of those publications, getting if a reporter is interested in your story, you shouldn't have to pay for it. That's something that surprised me when I started Artisan Joy was people asked me, "Oh, how much does it cost to be in your magazine?" And I was, and because I'm from, my background is in journalism, I was just surprised, and that's not it's not to say that the paying to have a story shared about you is a bad thing. Just be aware of those two of that.
Mhm. Yes, and I've seen the same thing of we call it basically the free versus pay to play. And our magazine is free. I know yours is as well. And so I always try to be very clear with people, this is free. There's no cost, and when I email and when I follow up, or even if I cold reach out to people because I know they could contribute to a story, of being very clear about the fact that it is free. So that's another great point of just awareness that there are markets that exist that are pay to play versus free outlets as well. All right. Well, this has been super helpful. Can you tell anyone that is listening to this how they can actually apply to be an Artisan Joy, and where can they find the magazine?
So if they go to artisanjoy.com, at the very top of the homepage, there is a be featured button. Just click on that. It will take you to a very simple form. It asks for your email, your name, your last name, your website or social media page, and the country that you live in. And then you submit that, and it usually takes me a bit to get back to people. But I am very open to covering. Artisan Joy is a platform where I'm promoting the work of artists and artisans. So I try to cover as many stories as I can, and nice pictures help with that because we're a magazine is something that's visual and online is visual. So having a nice picture is important for my brand. So just whoever's pitching, keep that in mind.
Mhm. All right. Wonderful. Well, thank you everyone for listening today, and we will catch you next time.